This little video is going to look at the 8 wastes of production. It's part of the efficiencies and effectiveness series. So the 8 wastes, simple mnemonic to remember it is Tim Wood. So T looks at the transport of the goods and services, the I is the inventory, the M is the motion that's taken to create them, W is the waiting times, the O, first O is overproduction, second O is overprocessing. Very lucky that we put over in there, isn't it? Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to make an acronym. D is defects and S is skills. So when looking at the 8 wastes, Tim Woods is a great, not mnemonic, acronym I suppose is the best way to remember it. Let's go through these. So transport, we're looking at, do we have to move the people or the products or the information? So how close are the different, if you are in a chain making, a supply chain, a production line making something, how close are the stages to each other? So do you have to walk around to get the products? So I know for our department, we have the photocopier is 3 offices down, so we have to walk across, but if it runs out of paper we have to go down 3 flights of stairs. So that's a waste of efficiency. So some spare paper should really just be put with the photocopier, for all the spare papers held centrally. So just the transporting of paper, and then when we print something out you have to go over 3 offices just to get what you've printed out. So it's deemed more efficient and more effective because we have less photocopiers. However, the motion, the transporting of the products, so transport of the product takes a lot longer. I, inventory. So you storing parts and pieces for your products. You know, do you have a high amount of stock? And what if that stock goes off? And how much money do you have tied up in that stock? So if you think you're if you're a furniture provider, have you got a lot of these spare fabrics around just in case somebody wants that sofa in that colour, etc. So how much stock do you actually have? And is that a waste or is that a valuable asset? Motion, this is about you actually doing the processing of the thing. So if you think about it, how often do you, when you're creating something, is everything within easy reach of your hands? There's a great, if you watch a lot of films like I do, there's Equilibrium where all the desks are made out so that everything's in the exact same place, everything's in the right place, so exactly when you need it you can grab it. So how much is the motion? So your motion in creating, in manufacturing, can you stay in one place and everything's at hand, or do you have to move around an awful lot? You know, so you're bending, turning, reaching, lifting, etc. May sound silly, but in my kitchen it's a very bad layout because the fridge and the cooker are at the opposite ends of the kitchen. So if I cook a lot of things that come out of the fridge, obviously I have to keep walking back and forth. Now for me that's not much of an issue, I only cook 1 meal a day at home. However, if I was in a working kitchen, does that make for a lot of wastes, and could it be sped up a little bit? Waiting, how long do you have to wait for parts, information, instructions, equipment, etc. So what's your lag and lead times? So is there when somebody puts that order in, is there a wait time, or can it be good to go? So if you think about McDonald's made its name by being fast food. It's hard to think, but back then there was no such thing as fast food. So you put in your order for your burger and you had to wait for it to be cooked. So that's how it is with Wendy's now. In fact, Wendy's are really pushing this as a USP, that they're not fast food. But they would pre-cook a lot of things and they hope that it could speed people up for their customers. So is there any waiting times that's going to affect and make you less efficient and effective? I love watching those TV programs where they take old cars and fix them up, and they're forever having to send it away to the painters or the body shop to have some of its bodywork done, and that takes a long time. So can they realistically work on the engine whilst the chassis is out of their workshop? So what waiting is there? Oh, overproductions. So do you make more than is absolutely necessary? So this is a thing I do. In lessons I bring in kind of handouts and things like that. And how many do I print off? Do I print off just enough to need? Do I print out too many and therefore I have overproduction? Do I print out too few and therefore somebody has to wait while I go to the printer to print some more? It's very hard to get that balance right. So overproduction, making more than is immediately required. But as we said earlier, if we think about McDonald's, the key thing is they try and get that number exactly right. So there's no production, but there's no waiting times. Processing, tighter tolerances or high grade materials than is necessary. Okay, if it's a cheap t-shirt, for instance, it doesn't need to be out of organic fair trade cotton if it's just a cheap throwaway t-shirt. So you just need to do what is enough to make the sale. I must admit, I have a friend who has a company, and they're very good at this, because he makes he's in manufacturing, and I always think he should add X, Y, Z onto his product to make it look better. But ultimately, there's no need, because he sells his products for the price he wants, and he doesn't need to. But I always think he could do with that a little bit more. So I would be over processing. I would be putting more on it than is needed. It's kind of like if we use McDonald's, and if you go into McDonald's, they don't need to pay staff to show you to your seat. It's McDonald's. So that'd be an example of over processing. So it's about keeping things just at the limit of what you're paying. If you're paying a low price, you're going to expect a lower product, low value quality product. But that's not a bad thing, because people are aware of that. To add more onto it is not needed. So, if I go to McDonald's, I'm not expecting hand cooked burgers, that are from the farm assured Wagyu beef, etc. It's just over processing. It's not needed. Defects. So getting it wrong is a waste. An obvious statement, this. Okay, but you've got to rework the thing. So if a staff member gets your order wrong when you're at a restaurant, they have to either rework it, so hopefully they can cook it for a bit longer, or warm up your meal or whatever, or do they have to scrap it and start again? And what happens to that scrapped food? So that's a waste. So getting something wrong is a big waste in manufacturing or in the service industry as well. And incorrect documentation, for those people that are into purchasing and things like that, it sometimes is very frustrating that somebody might have sent you the right thing, but because the documentation is wrong, there's still issues with it. And then skills, underutilizing capabilities or delegating tasks with inadequate training. This is once again, a big waste in organisations. So underutilizing capabilities is like England football team. We had for some time, Wayne Rooney was the most prolific goal scorer in the Premier League, and we used to stick him in midfield or on the wing. And every armchair coach knew that was wrong. Obviously, the main coaches did it differently, but it just wasn't utilising that person's skills and capabilities, because they could do so much more if you put them in a different kind of area. So underutilising skills, or giving somebody a job to do when they don't actually have the required training or resources to do it. And that can create waste as well. So how often do you go into a store, especially say you're taking something back? So you go into a clothing store to take something back, and they have to call a supervisor over. So you're there clogging up the tills, waiting a little while the supervisor finishes doing whatever they're doing, and they come over to help you out. Okay, so either create customer services to minimise this waiting again, or train these staff so that they can do the returns so that people aren't waiting again. Okay, so quickly summarise then, the 8 wastes within manufacturing are framed as Tim Woods. That's transport, inventory, motion. So transport is the goods and services, motion is you dealing with the goods and services, and then waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, and skills. And as we can see there, with the Woods, it's very much about getting the balance right. So how can you minimize the waiting without having to deal with overproduction and overprocessing, etc.